As investigators pieced together the final movements of Elisa Lam, the case seemed to move toward closure on paper yet drift further into uncertainty in the minds of the public. Because while officials from the Los Angeles Police Department reconstructed a timeline that suggested she had accessed the fire escape and reached the rooftop of the Cecil Hotel on her own, the physical realities of that journey continued to provoke debate, especially when it was revealed that parts of the roof were alarmed and certain doors were reportedly locked, prompting endless discussion about how she might have navigated the building unnoticed in a place surrounded by cameras and staff. The autopsy found no evidence of assault, no clear trauma, and toxicology reports indicated that while some of her prescribed medications were present in her system, others were found in lower concentrations than expected, leading medical examiners to consider the possibility that she had not been taking them. Consistently, a detail that aligned with her documented struggle with bipolar disorder yet did not fully account for the almost theatrical gestures seen in the elevator footage, gestures that were slowed down, stabilized, analyzed frame by internet sleuths who believed they could decode hidden meaning in every movement of her hands. Speculation grew rapidly, fueled not only by the hotel's grim past but by strange coincidences that emerged online, including comparisons to a tuberculosis test kit known as the Lam-Elisa test used by health authorities in the area during a tuberculosis outbreak among the homeless population near downtown Los Angeles. A coincidence that some interpreted as chilling symbolism rather than random overlap, even though experts dismissed it as nothing more than unfortunate naming. Others linked her death to the city's urban legends, drawing lines between her behavior and the history of violence tied to the building, which had once housed infamous serial killer Richard Ramirez during his killing spree in the 1980s. And though there is no evidence connecting those past horrors to Elisa's death, the psychological weight of that history made it difficult for many to accept a simple explanation, because the Cecil had become a character in its own narrative, a concrete monument to despair that seemed to absorb tragedy over decades. Meanwhile, her family pursued legal action against the hotel, arguing that security failures may have contributed to her death, but the court ultimately ruled in favor of the hotel, stating that her actions could not have been reasonably foreseen. A legal conclusion that closed one chapter yet left emotional questions untouched, particularly the haunting image of guests unknowingly drinking and bathing in water drawn from the tank where her body lay undiscovered for weeks, a detail that cemented the case in public memory not only as mysterious but deeply disturbing. Documentaries and streaming series revisited the story years later, interviewing former guests, employees, and investigators, some emphasizing the mental health angle with compassion, others leaning into the paranormal aura that continues to surround the building, now rebranded and partially renovated yet forever linked to that February discovery. And through each retelling, the elevator video remained central, because it offered the illusion of proximity, as though viewers were standing just outside the frame, just beyond the threshold where she looked and gestured, trying to see what she saw. In the end, the official cause of death remained accidental drowning with bipolar disorder listed as a significant factor, and for many experts that explanation, while tragic, is consistent with cases in which untreated or undertreated manic episodes can lead to impulsive and risky behavior. Yet the discomfort persists because humans crave narrative coherence. We want a visible antagonist, a clear sequence of cause and effect, not the fragile reality that sometimes a vulnerable mind combined with an isolating environment can produce consequences that feel cinematic yet stem from deeply human struggle. And so the story of Elisa Lam continues to exist in two parallel forms, one grounded in medical reports, security footage, and court documents, the other sustained by online forums and late-night conversations that refuse to let the mystery settle. A story replayed in dim rooms where viewers pause the footage at the exact moment she leans forward into the hallway, as if by staring long enough they might discover a shadow that was never there, or confirm that she was reacting only to something within herself. Perhaps the most unsettling truth is not that something supernatural happened on that rooftop, but that uncertainty itself can be more haunting than any ghost, because when the elevator doors finally closed and she stepped out for the last time, the camera kept recording but offered no answers, and that silence, stretching from a hallway in downtown Los Angeles to millions of screens around the world, is what truly endures, a reminder that some mysteries are not solved by uncovering monsters in the dark, but by confronting how fragile and complex the human mind can be when left alone above a sleeping city. There are some deaths that feel like tragedies, and then there are others that feel like warnings, and on a cold February morning in 2013, when maintenance workers climbed to the rooftop water tanks of the Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles and made a discovery that would horrify the world. It became clear that what happened to Elisa Lam was not just a tragedy but a mystery so unsettling that even now, more than a decade later, it refuses to rest. Before her body was found, before the headlines exploded across continents, before millions replayed that grainy elevator footage late at night with their lights off, there was simply a young 21-year-old student from Vancouver traveling alone, curious about the world, documenting her journey through blog posts filled with honesty about her dreams and her struggles, especially her ongoing battle with bipolar disorder, a condition she spoke about openly, bravely, never imagining that it would later be used by strangers to explain away something that still feels unexplainable. She arrived in Los Angeles full of excitement, checked into the infamous Cecil Hotel, a building already heavy with history, once home to serial killers, suicides, overdoses, and decades of whispered stories that locals preferred not to repeat. Yet Elisa chose it simply because it was affordable and centrally located, unaware that she was stepping into a structure that seemed to collect darkness the way old walls collect dust. At first everything seemed ordinary. She shared a room with other travelers, explored the city, visited bookstores, museums, and posted cheerful updates for her family. But within days something shifted. Her roommates reportedly complained about what they described as strange behavior, leading hotel management to move her into a private room, and while details remain vague, that quiet relocation marked the beginning of a silence that would soon become deafening. On January 31st, she was last seen alive, and after that the trail went cold, her phone inactive, her blog silent, her family growing desperate as days stretched into weeks, and then the Los Angeles Police Department released surveillance footage from inside one of the hotel elevators. Footage that would change everything. Footage that would turn a missing person case into one of the internet's most obsessive mysteries. Because what the camera captured did not look normal, did not feel ordinary, did not resemble the calm behavior of a tourist waiting for her floor. In the video, Elisa enters the elevator, presses multiple buttons, then steps back into a corner as if hiding, peering out into the hallway, moving her hands in strange, almost theatrical gestures, stepping in and out repeatedly as though speaking to someone unseen, at one point pressing every button on the panel while the doors refused to close, and viewers around the world began asking the same question. Who was she reacting to? Some believed she was frightened of someone outside the frame, others suggested she was experiencing a psychiatric episode, while a darker corner of the internet whispered about something not human lingering in the hallway, something tied to the Cecil Hotel's violent past. Days after the video was released, hotel guests began complaining about low water pressure and a strange taste in the tap water. Some even saying the water ran dark, and maintenance workers were sent to investigate the rooftop tanks. Heavy metal containers perched above the city skyline, difficult to access without a key and knowledge of the building's security systems, and when one of the lids was opened, what they found inside was Elisa Lam's decomposing body floating in the water that had been running through the hotel's pipes. The shock was immediate, the horror indescribable, because questions multiplied instead of shrinking. How had she reached the roof without triggering alarms? How had she accessed the locked tanks? Why was there no clear footage of her climbing the fire escape? And perhaps most haunting of all, why did the elevator behave so strangely in that final recording, appearing to delay its closing as if waiting? Authorities eventually ruled her death an accidental drowning, concluding that she had likely climbed into the tank herself during a manic episode. But for many, that explanation felt incomplete, almost too convenient, because certain details did not align. Reports about whether the tank lid was open or closed conflicted, the timeline felt blurred, and the Cecil Hotel's history added fuel to every theory, transforming a real human tragedy into a labyrinth of speculation that spread across forums, documentaries, and late-night discussions, as strangers dissected every frame of that elevator footage searching for a shadow, a reflection, a clue that could transform confusion into certainty. Yet beneath all the theories, beneath the supernatural claims and conspiracy threads, remained a young woman far from home, whose final days were captured in fragments, whose story became viral before it became understood, and whose death still lingers, like the echo of elevator doors that never quite close, leaving us suspended in that narrow hallway, watching her step in and out of view, wondering if she was alone, wondering if she was afraid, and wondering whether the truth is something that simply slipped away, lost somewhere between a locked rooftop door and a tank of still water overlooking the restless city below.